Mick, you were giving us the word premise of your new show, and you even said yourself, oh, it's been 10 years since Masters of Horror, doing anthologies and stuff. What made you come back to that kind of, well, like you said, like anthology type of thing?
It never went away from me. I tried for years to get it going. After Masters of Horror was on for 2 years, my idea was, let's do a Masters of Horror, but do it all around the world. Shoot one in England, shoot one in Japan, shoot one in France, shoot one in Australia, shoot one in Mexico. And I was much more ambitious than the movie companies were. So it took a long time. Originally I thought of it like a Masters of Horror TV show. Then I started thinking, let's do a series of feature films, 90-minute, one-story movies in different countries, do a series of 6 movies. But it was just too ambitious. And so the idea of doing these short films and putting them together into one package suddenly got traction just very recently. It happened very quickly. And I've always loved that form. Even, my first job was Amazing Stories. My first job as a writer. And Steven Spielberg wanted to give back that thrill of The Twilight Zone or The Outer Limits, where it was a different story every week. And in those days, I never watched series TV. I loved movies, but I never watched a series that was on every week. I wasn't interested in getting to know that new family of a series. That's changed over the years because now television series are as good or better than movies. They're deeper, and they're not just sitcoms and things. So,
where Masters of Horror came out like 10 years ago, like the genre fans looked at it like, oh my God, at last.
Yeah,
we have a TV show that it's only horror.
Me too. I'm a fan.
So when you came up with that idea, what were you thinking? Like, oh, was it difficult to get it like done?
Here's the truth of it. It started out a couple of years before the show. I came up with an idea of, a lot of us are friends. A lot of the filmmakers in the horror genre are friends. And we would run into each other at places like this festival, other horror festivals or conventions and the like. And people would always say something like, oh, we all ought to get together for dinner sometime. And for a couple of years that went on, and I realized, nobody's going to do this unless I do. And so I did. And it took like a week to put together that first dinner, making phone calls, are you available this night or that night? Very complicated, difficult. And we did. Our first dinner was 12 filmmakers: Guillermo del Toro, John Landis, Tobe Hooper, Stuart Gordon, me, a lot of horror directors. Yeah, and we had the best time. And so the next time I put one together a couple of months later, it took me 1 hour to get everybody, yeah, I'm there. And so we actually still do it. But it was at one of those dinners where it was like, wouldn't it be great if we could be our own bosses? If we could make a show with no interference from everybody. And so I talked to a bunch of the guys at the dinners, and they agreed to put their names in the project, say, yeah, if it gets going, I'll do one of them. And so by the time we got it all together, we went out to pitch it to 3 different companies. And the very first one we went to said, yes, how much, and when can we start? And the 3 people we met on the same day, all of them wanted to do it, but the first one wanted to do it now. And so we did it, and it took a long time of planning it, but once we started pitching it got set up right away.
When did you come up with that idea? Like, oh yeah, let's do it on a global scale and see.
Well, the reason I did was in Masters of Horror, both series that we shot the movies, we did one of them in Japan. So we did one with Takashi Miike in Japan, and then with Norio Tsuruta the next year in Japan. And I realized, this wasn't difficult to do. Why don't we do this, like, if we do 13 shows, why not every one in a different country? And but nobody wanted to do that. So the great thing about Nightmare Cinema is that although it's directors from the US, from the UK, from Cuba, from the UK, and from Japan, all of them live in Los Angeles now. So we'll shoot them all in LA. Yeah. You know, I'm not, producing is not the love of my life, except in the case of Masters of Horror. I've produced other things of my own, but the great thing about producing this, and the fun part, I'm not a businessman. I'm really shitty at business and I don't want to be a businessman. But the great thing about producing Masters of Horror and Nightmare Cinema is being able to work with my friends and be their cheerleader, not be their boss, but be the guy who says, yeah, do this, and encourage them. And because you don't always get that from your producers. So I'm a creative producer rather than a business producer. So that really started with Masters of Horror, and it was something where I was able to just be their friend and their compadre, you know, when we're doing that, and get everybody out of their way.